Camcorder Cameron here. I just got back from seeing Love Lies Bleeding, directed by Rose Glass. So I just wanted to come on here and share my thoughts. So my quick spoiler-free review is that I really enjoyed this movie. I'm a sucker for sapphic stories, so this really grabbed me by my heartstrings in the beginning. I think that Kristen Stewart just... she's a big crush, right? Like, she just embodies, that it girl thing. She was just undeniably charming in this role, and I think it took us for a fun ride. I never really knew exactly what was gonna happen next. The best part about this movie is the love story. I think Kristen Stewart and Katie O'Brien have great chemistry. I think that they're both very unique characters, and it's just something different because you don't see women like them represented on screen very often. I'm a sucker for an LGBTQ story that doesn't make coming out and coming to terms with your identity the whole plot. I think that we've seen that 100 times, and it's really refreshing to get to see two queer characters just exist as themselves on screen with no on-screen reckoning with their sexuality. There's a very throwaway line where Kristen Stewart's talking about her weird relationship with her dad. Her girlfriend is like, oh, is it because he wasn't accepting about you liking girls? And she's like, oh no, he's totally fine with that. And then she says it's other things. So I just thought that was great. Love is just love. And I keep using the word love, but I don't necessarily think that these characters are in love in the sense of what I think of whenever I watch The Notebook, They don't seem like these big romantic soulmates. I feel like it's very much like limerence. They're in limerence with each other. They have a lot of physical chemistry with each other. And also they're two very lonely women, going through their phases in life. This movie takes place in the 80s. So you feel that sense of loneliness with Kristen Stewart's character Lou, who lives in a small town. It seems like there's one other girl in town who likes girls, and Kristen Stewart's not interested in her at all. So whenever Jackie rolls into town, it's another queer woman, and it seems like the only other queer woman in town. So that definitely brings the two together, but they also have a shared interest in, working on their fitness. But I loved the beginning of their relationship.
You're looking pretty good in there. There's some pretty serious lines going.
Both of our characters are very miserable and depressed, so whenever they find each other, things happen very quickly because they both just want a distraction and someone to fill that void within themselves. With Kristen Stewart's character, being depressed, working for her father who she hates, like Jim, and then Jackie's character is homeless, wandering through town, but she has hopes and dreams of being a bodybuilder, and she at first sight appears to just go with the flow, but we find out later on that she is kind of running away from her troubled family life. One thing I really like about this movie is it doesn't exposit too much. It doesn't feed you all of the information outright. We find out more and more as the movie unfolds, and it kind of gives depth to both of our characters because we learn more about their past as the movie goes, which is really interesting, and it kind of keeps a little bit of a mystery going. This movie has some crime and some mystery going on, but honestly, I wouldn't necessarily call it a crime thriller. I don't know. For me, it seemed more like a fun, pulpy, 80s throwback movie with some lesbians, with some blood, with a bad guy. So basically, it's just like a schlocky 80s movie, but replace the undercurrent of cocaine with depression. And that's what you get whenever you watch Love Lies Bleeding.
Are you threatening me?
Yep.
The biggest struggle for me with this movie is just tone. Like, I wish it leaned more heavily into the schlocky 80s of it all. And I think that could have been achieved more with just how the movie's edited, because at the very end you do get like a shift into fantasy where our characters become larger than life, little bit of magical realism happens, and it's clear that the movie isn't taking itself too seriously and it's just having fun with this story. So I really like what happens with the end. I just wish that the movie introduced more of those elements earlier on in the film, because up until that final act, the movie takes itself pretty seriously, and it's much more grounded in reality. There are moments in the movie whenever we see Jackie flex her muscles and we get this like pulsing, gushing sound effect to go along with it. I loved all those moments, but there was no signs that it was gonna lead into her turning into the Hulk at the end. I really feel like we needed more surrealism throughout the entirety of the film to have that fantasy ending feel earned. I'm comparing it in my head to Rose Glass's other movie, Saint Maud, which I recently watched, which is a story about a nurse who is psychologically struggling, and you're kind of watching her descent into insanity. And the movie has similar themes where our very real main character, who seems like a real struggling woman, she has a lot of magical realism scenes where she's floating or she's talking to Jesus, and all of those moments look like magic on the screen, but it's clear that this is her own like warped mind making these perceptions happen, and it's not real. Something like that could be incorporated more into this movie, especially because we do see heavy drug use. I mean, I don't know all the steroid effects, right? But they were saying that all these steroids were kind of like hyping her up and making her more violent, and I think it would be interesting if the steroids were making her have these grandiose visions of her being the Hulk. I just wish that we got to see some visual representations of how it feels to be hyped up on steroids, the way that she was using and abusing the steroids. I mean, we had like this one sequence whenever she's at her bodybuilding competition where she has like a trauma flashback and she visualizes herself like puking out Kristen Stewart's character. It kind of just looks like an anxiety, like a visual representation of a panic attack, right? I think that was a really great moment to portray what it feels like to maybe have a panic attack in a very creative and artistic way. I wish they leaned into more of those scenes, and maybe I got to see some times whenever she's flexing in the mirror at herself. Maybe I could see her grow large in her own mind, you know? This movie is at its best whenever we get to see our two characters enamored with each other. I wish I got to see more romance elements. I mean, that's just my personal feelings. I think that's just my favorite part. But the crime plot line and her father plot line, this is kind of where the movie starts to lose me. I really loved seeing, you know, the murder of her abusive brother-in-law. That was a very satisfying murder, and it got my heart racing. But then I feel like the movie just kind of like lost steam after that, where they're trying to like, where the bodies keep piling up, right? It's like, that is a very serious thing, and I would have been pleased just to see the women try and clean up the body and run off together, right? I just wanted to see more love throughout, less crime, more love. I almost would have just preferred if the story stopped with Jackie killing JJ. No more murders. We just get to see the fallout of that and how our two characters grapple with that and their whole interpersonal relationship after something like that, instead of, you know, the ties with her father and the mob and all these other people that end up dying. It felt very inconsequential. It just got kind of crazy and it lost itself near the end. My least favorite character is Lou's father. I think that he's this cartoonish comic book hero villain. He's a guy who, you know, likes to prey on small things like bugs and stuff. So it is really satisfying whenever Jackie as a Hulk like kind of squashes him like a bug at the end. Like, I did get that, but he was just a little too goofy for all these other very real complex characters that we have. And I keep saying that, but every other character just felt like more grounded in reality, I guess. I know the whole point of this movie was that it's like a crime thriller, but personally I would have liked it better as like a emotional romance drama. Not because I don't like crime dramas, but just because that this movie at its best is a romantic emotional drama. It has two very strong leads. Like, Kristen Stewart is acting her heart out. Katie O'Brien, I've never seen her in anything before this, but she was wonderful. Her body was tea. She looked amazing. And the two of them together were so fine. This movie, it was just hot, okay? I'll just say it. It was hot. It was a hot movie. And it's just great. It's great to see them. It's great. I just wanted to see them. I wanted to see them more. Kristen Stewart, she is doing her typical like Kristen Stewart thing. If you've seen Kristen Stewart anything else, you know what I'm talking about. She's got her adorable little quirks, but it doesn't bother me at all. I think it just adds to her character because her character is very socially isolated in a lot of ways. She's introverted and awkward. And you can tell that she is just so in love with Jackie. Like, she's kind of fallen for all of it. She's swooning. So she's like stumbling in love. And Kristen does that really well. She really does. Overall, I would watch this movie again because it's just so different. I want to see more stories like this being told. I want to see more masculine women being represented. I love the story of a female bodybuilder. I've never seen a movie like that before. So it'd be great to get to see, just more of those stories be told. So it was fun, even in its like duller, nonsensical moments, I was having a good time. I was enjoying the performances. The soundtrack was good. It had a Patrick Cowley song in it during a love scene, and I love Patrick Cowley. So that's just wonderful. The movie's great. Costuming is great. Oh, and oh my God, Kristen Stewart's little press she's been doing for this movie where she's strutting around in her cute little outfits getting paparazzi'd. She's got me wrapped around her finger. I'm gonna insert some of her outfits that I've seen because these outfits alone were enough to get me to go to the theaters to see this movie, okay? She knows what she's doing. She's gorgeous, and this movie is just very gorgeous to watch. So yeah, I like it. Rating out of 10, I want to give it 7 out of 10. A happy 7 out of 10. Anyways, it's getting late, and I just wanted to come on here and give you guys my first impressions, so I feel like I did that. As always, it's time to thank my lovely Patreon supporters. They bought my movie ticket today. And, they're the whole reason why I'm here sharing this with you guys, because they keep me going, keep the lights on. If you're interested in supporting my channel, Patreon's a great way to do so. You get early access to all my videos, as well as some other bonus content, some archive camcorder footage, etc., etc. So thank you for making it to the end of this video, and thank you, my lovely Patreon members. Okay, Camcorder Cameron signing out.